Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio. I am your host, Ed Dentzel. Was that long enough of a pause for you? I hope it was. It's a beautiful day here in Tampa. It has been really, really nice. Been sunny, low 70s, kind of cool but warm. It's one of those days where you go outside and it's a little cool, but then you get in your car and your car is warm, because of the greenhouse effect. Yes, I have global warming going on inside my car. It's kind of one of those types of times of the year. I've been sleeping with the windows open, which is great. It seems for my sinuses and my allergies. Go figure that. I don't understand that. And I can do that sleeping with the windows open, of course, because I sleep with my Glock 19 beside me, so there's that. Yesterday, finally, my day concluded. I got my picture taken after what a fiasco that was, getting that all handled yesterday, but it's done now. And I had my writers group last night, and then today went a little more smoothly, which is nice. I saw that Erin Andrews got awarded $55 million, and this goes back to way back. It seems like yesterday, but it's going back, I think, to 2008. Is it that long ago? And maybe it's not that long ago. It's been a while since she got videotaped, and it might have been a time frame between her actually getting filmed and that going on and those videos being put on the internet. Jury awarded her $55 million. Of course, the guy that did that, I think he's already in jail, and now she has a suit against the hotel or hotels that went along with this, gave that guy the information of what room she was in and then what that guy did. I got to tell you, I will admit that when that first happened, I really thought that it was some type of, TMZ, fake but real or real but fake, whatever you want to call it. Like she had collaborated with somebody to make this happen, to kind of raise her profile. I mean, because to me, and I follow sports, although, I don't watch much sports now, but back then when I had a TV, I knew who she was, but it certainly seems like after that happened, her profile, everybody suddenly knew who she was. And that's why I started thinking, did she do this just to get some attention or something? Because you look at the videos, if you've ever seen the videos, and I have, of course, you can't find them on the internet anymore, I don't think. But I will admit, when they came out, I saw them. They're really no big deal. I can understand why she felt her privacy was invaded, and it was. But it wasn't like she was videotaped cheating on a boyfriend or a husband or doing drugs or kicking a dog or anything like that. All right, so let's put it in its proper perspective. In fact, what you kind of found out about Erin Andrews, even though she was naked, she probably just does what every naked person does when they're in their room or at home or anything else, which is kind of nice to know. She wasn't doing anything. And she didn't know that she was being filmed at $55 million. And I realized she got harassed because of it. And, of course, there were people like me that thought that she might have had something to do with the filming of it in the first place. That seems like an outrageous amount of money to me. It just does. That sounds to me more like I want to get that money so I don't have to work any more money. Let's just put it that way. I don't know if the reward goes along with, because she hasn't, to my observation, she hasn't paid anything. I mean, her career hasn't suffered because of it. She continued to be employed. In fact, she's moved on. She's left and gone to, I don't think she's with ESPN anymore, but she's moved on to wherever she is now. I know she's still out there, broadcasting from games, getting interviews and everything else. So, I don't know, $55 million. I have it written in my notes here. If that's what you get If you can get $55 million for just being filmed in secret, you know what? Somebody has permission to come to my place and film me in secret doing the same thing, and then I'll sue for $55 million, and nobody will ever have to hear from me ever again. If all I have to do is dance around naked like she was doing in those videos. So that's what goes through my mind. Like I said, if it was something else that she was doing in those videos, I could understand. And dare I say it, can I just say this on a side note? She has not aged well. Maybe because of the stress regarding this. Maybe that has something to do with it. But there's definitely a difference between what she looks like when the videos were done and now. No, it just doesn't seem like she is aged well. Maybe it's just me. Another thing, if you can imagine, and we will get to the politics. We'll get to those. But can you believe it's been 2 years since Flight 370 disappeared? Still a lot of conspiracy theories out there, allegations. Was it the pilot? Was it hijacked? Did somebody hack the plane? Did some hacker figure out a way to get into the computer system and control the plane and fly it somewhere? Because all they've found, I haven't found it, was that one part that washed up on the island of Mozambique, on the shore of Mozambique. Is that right? Mozambique, Madagascar, Mozambique, in the Western Indian Ocean. And then a couple pieces have surfaced recently, but I'm not sure if those are from the plane or not. But only one part has been identified as being from the plane, so it's somewhere, unless you believe, of course, that was planted. There are conspiracy people out there who believe that. I'm still convinced that the pilot had some sort of psychological break and took the plane somewhere. However, I'm not convinced that he took it where everybody thinks he took it. I believe all the people were dead. I believe the plane crashed. I believe it crashed in the ocean. But being that the Australians have not found anything in that area tells me something. And before you dismiss, well, they looked at him, and yeah, he was ticked off about what happened to this one politician he was following, and there's some other issues with him. But it does look like he was suicidal, to which I say, you just don't know. You just don't know. I always tell the story of a woman who, here in the Tampa area, who would cross the Skyway Bridge every day to go to work from St. Pete down to Bradenton, Sarasota, and back. Well, she decided one day to jump off the top of that bridge, and she killed herself. This must have happened 3 years ago, something like that. And that morning, she stopped and got coffee at the place she always gets coffee, even though she knew she was going to jump off that bridge. And she jumped. The ambulance gets there. The coffee was still warm. So you never know. She still stopped for coffee, even though she was going to jump off the bridge anyway. And that's why I say that trying to put this into some context of, well, that's just not logical. Somebody wouldn't have done that. People show signs of suicide. A lot of times they don't. A lot of times they don't. And we know if you start looking into it, you will find that many people, there are more instances of pilots committing suicide in planes than you realize. You start looking into it, you're going to find plenty. And with passengers on board, plenty. And of course, we had that one from last year with German Wings. So, plenty. This just happens to be a little unique. So let's get to the political side of the show. Man, I went a little long there. But I needed to opine on those couple topics. I just can't believe it's been 2 years since Flight 370. That seems like yesterday. About yesterday, regarding the primaries, of course, Donald Trump won in, where did he win? He won in Hawaii, he won in Michigan, he won in Mississippi, and then Ted Cruz won in Idaho. I think the most important part of yesterday, if this can even be believed, that Marco Rubio got no delegates yesterday. Not one. John Kasich got 17. Ted Cruz ended up getting something like 57, I think. And then Donald Trump, I think he's going to end up with something like in the low 70s, 71, 72, 73, something like that. Marco Rubio got 0. And once again, even John Kasich got 17. I don't know what to tell you about this. See, this is, I have it written in my notes. Wouldn't it have just been nice if Marco Rubio had been a senator from Iowa or New Hampshire? Because then those states would have already had their chance. He would have either won them or lost them. And by this time, if he was getting 0 delegates yesterday, then you could say, yep, he's going to drop out. But because he just happens to be in Florida, and Florida is at this position in the process, and it does seem to me, once again, I would have to go back and check in 2012. The order, it seems, of states is definitely different than it was in 2012. I remember it as being Florida was right after South Carolina. Of course, South Carolina has been weeks ago, and we still have another week to go before I get to vote in Florida unless I want to vote early, which I'm not going to do. I think in the old system, it seems to me Florida would have already gone by now. And we could have gotten this out of the way as to how well Marco Rubio was going to do or he wasn't going to do. But because of where Florida is just at this, it seems like the worst of spots now, given what has been going on, we're stuck with it. Would know, had Marco Rubio won his state of Iowa or his state of New Hampshire, I don't know if it'd be any further ahead than he is. I don't know. That's an alternative history. But at least we know he wouldn't be hanging around if he was getting 0 delegates yesterday. I guess, on the other hand, we just have to be happy he's not the senator from California, because I guess his people would be making the same argument. Well, we got to hold out for California, and we know California, when is it, another month? Maybe even longer, far away than that. And my impression is he has no shot here. That's my impression. And not because I believe the polls. I'm just looking at his groundwork that he's done in these other states, and maybe he's given them up some on purpose. But he's giving a lot of people in Florida who might support him a lot of reasons to either stay home or vote for somebody else. If they haven't voted already. Like I said yesterday, I was over there getting my concealed carry license, and I saw the signs for early voting. It did not even occur to me that I should walk into that office and do so. Did not even occur to me. I'm like a election day type of guy. I got the time to do it. Might as well do it on election day. I guess it's convenient for other people to just get it out of the way. But he's not going to win here just because I look at everything else. The polls, who knows what's going on in the polls? The polls for none of the states yesterday were accurate. None of them. If these polling companies were doing this 30 years ago, and the lack of quality that these polls have, these polling companies would have been out of business decades ago. Decades. Just can't get anything right. Nobody picks up their phone anymore. A lot of people will troll the polling companies, say they're going to vote one way and they're going to vote the other. Unfortunately, I think in a lot of these cases, the people who are most willing to be polled over the phone are the most energetic supporters, which also skews the results. So they're just not accurate anymore. And I don't know if that's ever going to get back in line. These polling companies are going to have to figure something out. Now, maybe the campaigns themselves do a better job. We don't have access to them. I don't know. But getting back to Marco Rubio in Florida, The problem here is, and even if he were to drop out tomorrow, looks at what happened on Tuesday, sees that Ted Cruz continues to kick his butt in every state, and hey, Marco Rubio knows he's taking, he knows he's taking votes away from Ted Cruz. You know how he knows that? Because he also knows that he's taking away votes from Ted Cruz. They're not naive. They read the news, even though Marco Rubio has a bunch of yes men around him, just like every other candidate does. The problem now is, even if he were to drop out tomorrow, all of these people who have already voted, and this is one of the reasons that a lot of purists regarding our election system hate early voting, is that even if he were to drop out tomorrow, all those votes still count for Marco Rubio. It's not like those people can go back in and vote for somebody else. So even if he were to drop out and say, you know what, got to get out, I throw all my support behind Ted Cruz, those votes, they're still going to go to Marco Rubio. So Marco Rubio is only going to be able to push so many of his supporters over to Ted Cruz. You know? That's the tough part of it. That's what makes this all so difficult. And I don't know how many people have voted so far in Florida. I've not looked that up. I don't know. I expect that Florida is going to be, there's going to be a lot more people voting this time than has ever voted before, just like it's happened in every other state. However, I don't know how that translates to people voting the days before the election and then people voting on the day of the election. I have seen some, once again, pollsters trying to figure out the makeup of people who've already voted and how they voted. I don't know if any of that can be believed or not. It seems a little favorable to Rubio, but given that the pollsters have been wrong in just about all the other states, I don't know how you can believe it. Because this also makes it difficult for Ted Cruz. It's a very fine line, I think, that Ted Cruz's campaign is trying to run right now. In regards to Florida, of course, we have, 5 days to the actual election day. That on one hand, he's almost probably thinking maybe Marco Rubio needs to stay in this race to keep delegates from Donald Trump, if Marco Rubio can even get his act in order. The problem is it doesn't seem that he can. I mean, he went 4 states yesterday, including Idaho, and got no delegates. I'm going to say it again. No delegates. So he's not helping. He's not helping. In fact, at this point, John Kasich is doing more to help Donald Trump play keep away with the delegates. John Kasich's doing a better job than Marco Rubio is, even though I know Marco Rubio at this point still has more delegates than John Kasich does overall. And it could be that Marco Rubio instead is keeping Ted Cruz from winning a couple of these states and even getting more delegates. So it's kind of playing into Donald Trump's hand. So Ted Cruz is sitting there thinking, well, you got Florida coming up. It's a winner-take-all state. It's not a proportional state, and that's been kind of nice to this point, but that's a winner-take-all state. And I got to keep Donald Trump from winning. But the guy who you would think has the best shot to take him out isn't running much of a campaign anymore, it doesn't seem, except trying to win in Florida, where he's a senator. But by him tanking in all those other states, he's actually hurting himself in his home state. So Ted Cruz is trying to figure out, who do I attack? Marco Rubio and Donald Trump. And of course, I think the decision he's making is to attack both. And, he's fighting a 2-theater war. And that is not as easy as fighting a 1-theater war. So by Marco Rubio doing what he's doing, he's making it actually harder for Ted Cruz, the only guy who's shown that he can consistently give Donald Trump a problem. And it should be noted, despite Donald Trump winning 3 states yesterday, the biggest margin of victory was Ted Cruz over Donald Trump in Idaho. So there's that. It's amazing dynamics, and I've said this a couple times. It's amazing to watch if you just want to look at it from a political science point of view. However, if you actually care about the outcome, it can drive you a little nuts. It can. My prediction as I stand here on Wednesday is that Donald Trump's going to win Florida. He's going to get all the delegates. Marco Rubio isn't going to smell a win here. Then he'll drop out. But I'm thinking that it might be a little too late, is what I'm thinking. Because once you start doing the math, I'm not saying that won't help Ted Cruz. I know it will. I think there are a lot of Rubio supporters who will gladly go over and vote for Ted Cruz. I don't believe the supporters are as has been portrayed, and I talked about this last week, that these Rubio supporters, they either support 2 people, Rubio or Bush. I don't believe that. Maybe the big money donors do, but your average person, they'll move over to Ted Cruz. I'm not too worried about that. The problem is, you start doing the math, even if Ted Cruz starts winning some of these states down the road, beating Donald Trump, can he head him off at the pass in time? To use a horrible, horrible, horrible cliche. I just don't know if it works out that way. You should know my conscience is clear. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do right now. Next Tuesday, I'm going to go vote. I'm going to go vote for Ted Cruz. I'm not going to vote for Marco Rubio just in the hopes that he can pull out a miracle and beat Donald Trump here, because, frankly, I don't believe Marco Rubio has earned it. As much as I like Marco Rubio, and despite a couple of the positions that he has that a lot of conservatives don't like. But I can't vote for him because I just don't believe that he's working at it. I think that even though I know he's doing work in this state, but on the other hand, he's just taking for granted that I'll do well in Florida. I don't have to worry about losing these other states. I'll do well here, and it'll put me back in the race. That sounds to me like kind of taking your voters for granted. I think that if you're not a Donald Trump supporter, if you haven't totally lost your mind and vote for Donald Trump, you want to see a politician who's at least working, at least putting in the work. And I think that Ted Cruz is doing that. Even if he's not spending a lot of money in some of these states, it looks like he's putting in the work. I don't know what Marco Rubio is doing. I know he's out there making speeches. I know he's raised some money. But if he can't even contest in some of these other states, then and get more votes than John Kasich, of all people, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know how he continues to say that. I mean, because you have to keep something in mind. Even if he wins Florida next week, Ted Cruz is going to do decently well in some of the other states that are up next Tuesday. And Marco Rubio will still have less delegates than Ted Cruz does. Marco Rubio will still continue to have way less delegates than Ted Cruz. And maybe it means we're headed for a contested convention. Maybe brokered convention. Maybe. But I think that Ted Cruz knows that's not going to happen. I think his people know Marco Rubio is not going to win this state. That's going to be. You think the last couple days? Hey, this weekend was good, and even yesterday was not that bad. In the end, it looks like Donald Trump at the most is going to have gained 17 more delegates over Ted Cruz yesterday, despite Donald Trump winning 3 out of 4 races. But if you've been depressed the last few days, you wait till next Tuesday night. You wait. It could be that's because, once again, it's not proportional. It gets all the delegates if he wins Florida, and I think it's 55. It'll be Donald Trump 55, everybody else 0 in Florida. And once again, I guess I'll have to tell all of you, just got to stay away from the radio and the TV for a few days. The websites you go to for news, just stay away from them. Because you're just going to be down. You're just going to be depressed. Just leave it to me. I got to do this show. When you're ready to come back in, you go to edwarddentzel.com or the various other places, and then you can listen to what I have to say about it. Because it's not worth. You got lives to live. You have kids. You have a job. Maybe you have a vacation coming up or whatever else. You got to enjoy that stuff. And allow the people like me that have to look at it every day. So there's that. Now Ted Cruz came in second place in Michigan. That was a surprise. Easily won in Idaho, Mississippi. They did perfectly fine. Did what he had to do. But I don't know how that's going to affect what goes on next week. All right? Because you got to remember, even if he loses to Donald Trump in Florida by 1%, by 1 vote, Donald Trump gets everything. So it's tough. It's going to be tough. Let's move on to something else. On the other side, we got Hillary Clinton. If you were like a depressed Marco Rubio supporter yesterday, being that he got 0 delegates, how do you think Hillary supporters are feeling today? Going into Michigan, she was according to the polls, once again, polls crap. The polls said she was ahead by 21 points. And in Michigan, and she ended up losing. And in fact, I saw it, the 538 blog in a couple different places. That is the biggest turnaround, if you want to call it an upset, since 1984. In a contest in New Hampshire between Gary Hart and Walter Mondale. And even this dwarfs that. It's amazing. It just seems, it seems that the Democrat Party is once again skewing left. And you would think, if you just knew that and nothing else about going on in American politics, you would think that on the Republican side, that the Republicans would be skewing to the right. And that's not what happened. In fact, both parties are skewing left, no matter what you Trump supporters might say. They are both skewing left. And that's what so drives me nuts. And that's what upsets me so much about all of the conservatives who have lent support and lent kind words to Donald Trump over the last 8 months now. That little do they know that they are marginalizing themselves. They are almost pushing a party in this United States away from them. And they're not going to have much to show for it when it's all done. They're not. You would think, once again, just the way things have gone over the years, you would think, well, the Democrat Party is skewing further to the left. That means the Republican Party is skewing further to the right. And you want to know why that's not happening? Frankly, because the leftists in the Democrat Party are just better at playing the game than conservatives on the right are. That's the truth. The truth is, on the left, although they've had the Green Party, the Socialist Party, those leftists in the Democrat Party know the best way to effect change is to do it inside an institution that already exists. Conservatives, we get too caught up in going a third way. this is what happens. I want to continue to talk about that after the break. You've been listening to the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio.
Red State Talk Radio, feeding the hunger.
Hey, this is Alfonso Rachel with PJTV, Zo Nation, and the founder and drummer of 20 Pound Sledge. And you're listening to RedStateTalkRadio.com, the dominant force in conservative internet talk radio.
I'm a mom, and just like millions of other women, that's why I own guns. We're responsible, we're law-abiding, and we're everything that makes America strong. Every day we're willing to use a firearm to defend our families. But the media will never tell those stories. If a mom puts a gun to the face of a home-invading thug and makes him run for his life, the story gets buried. But if she's unarmed and murdered, the cameras will be at the scene before the police. It's time for moms like me to speak out. We are the majority. We demand the freedom to defend our families. And we challenge the media to tell the truth about our rights. I'm the National Rifle Association of America, and I'm freedom's safest place.
What does it mean for a country when its citizens turn on the news and expect to be misled? Because the reporters who once served as freedom's fearless watchdogs feel like distant characters in a fading memory. Today, too many journalists are just actors, playing to their boss's script. Why tell the truth when you can sell a lie for more? There's a price to pay for all this dishonesty. If the free press won't protect free people, it's our job to demand they do it. Do the work you say you do. Aim your First Amendment against hypocrisy and corruption like a hammer of the people. Kick down the doors of any leader who deceives us, and never tolerate dishonesty from your own ranks. That's what the good guys demand. We're the 5 million men and women in the National Rifle Association of America, and we will not play along. Join us today.
This is Don Newen with Cowboy Logic Radio. And if you don't go to bed every night absolutely fatigued from trying to restore America from the destruction that is taking place, then you're simply not doing enough. Join me late night Tuesday, early Wednesday, 12:05 a.m. for Cowboy Logic Radio on RedStateTalkRadio.com.
We're back at the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio. I want to continue to talk about just for a few minutes. We'll move on to a couple other things regarding what went on in Michigan, how Bernie Sanders won, beat Hillary Clinton, although he's still far behind in delegates. If we as conservatives could learn anything, it's from that. See, I have this belief. And granted, a lot of this, the work that I did regarding this, all the talking I did regarding this was before I was on Red State Talk Radio. But for a long time, going back to 2009, 2010, 2011, doing the podcast that I was doing on my own, I've always been against third-party runs. Always. Especially when conservatives are thinking about that. The Tea Party wants those Republicans, they don't want to listen to us. And you go off and they start talking about, we're going to form our own party and that's going to be that. That establishment, they don't listen to us. Well, you know what? That's a lot of leftists, and I know we don't agree with them, but if you pay attention to what leftists, the far, far, far leftists in the Democrat Party said, they've been saying that for years as well. You got to remember, there are a lot of people in the Democrat Party who believe that Barack Obama hasn't gone far enough. He's gone too easy on Republicans, that he did too much of what George W. Bush was doing. If you search for it on the internet, you'll find it. And it's a considerably large group. But one thing you never hear, though, is them going third party. Yeah, I know back in 2000 with Ralph Nader, but they learned their lesson since then. They've learned their lesson. That if you want to affect change, you got to do it within a brand, an institution that already has an identity, already has the framework, already has the donors, has a rich history, even though the party itself has changed over the last 50 years. They can still point back to the Great Society and FDR and JFK and Harry Truman and whoever else, Woodrow Wilson. But when you start from scratch, you got nothing. It's like starting a new business. Good luck with that. Instead of coming in and being the manager of a franchise. Being the manager of a franchise store of McDonald's is easier than starting your own business, your own restaurant, for example. To listen to too many people who think like me regarding at least the conservative ideology, they would have you say that it's the opposite. We're going to still go start off on our own. We're going to start our own restaurant, and before long, we're going to go overtake McDonald's. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. And see, what I would say is this is why I tried to tamper down, tried to control, tried to fight against all this talk of a third party in 2009, 2010, 2011 when it really got started. Because I knew eventually it was going to have an effect, and you're seeing it now. You're seeing it now. Those same people are now saying, we need to blow the party up, we need to do this, we need to do that, we can't exist within the framework of the Republican Party because they won't listen to us. You know what? That's the difference between us and liberals. Liberals, truthfully, they just work harder at their ideology. They just work harder. And I don't know if that is something that we are willing to admit. I realize they create a bunch of lazy people, but the ideologues, the people who are thirsting for power on the left, they never stop. Always understanding that to get what they want, they have to do it within the system. We haven't figured that out. We in a bizarre way, we're kind of like the radicals, not me personally, but too many on my side are too much thinking like the Black Panthers and those anti-government groups. Of course, they were all leftists of the late 60s because of the Vietnam War and Richard Nixon, all of that. They think that they need to do it from outside the system. Bill Ayers is going to blow up the Pentagon and stuff like that. We know how far they got, not far. And they learned their lesson. They figured out, you know what, this is a lot of work. We're not seeing a lot of results. And a lot of our people are getting sent to jail. Maybe we need to cut our hair, shave our beards, put on regular clothes, and work within the system, but never changing what's in our heads. All right? Conservatives still trying to learn that. Still trying to figure that out. We have not, we think that we are conservatives, we are the ones who learn from history. In this particular aspect, we are not learning. Instead, too many of our conservative leaders have latched onto a guy who says he's going to blow up the system, but really, he's going to work against us within the system. They see him as a guy who's going to blow it up, something that they've been wanting to do since 2010, and he's not going to do that. Instead, he's just going to get people to walk away. It's amazing. And in that way, the left just plays the game better than we do. And they're going to win because of it. They're going to. I can foresee no way that Donald Trump wins in November. His unfavorables are too high. Who knows what he's going to do and say? I've told you yesterday, I think he's a fad. I think as the year goes on, his support is going to get less. Because you have to remember something. Right now, I mean, if you can believe it, at least he realizes he's in a contest, and maybe he's kind of at least a little bit controlling what he's saying. What happens when he has no competition anymore on the Republican side? What then? When all of the chains are thrown off, do you think that he has the temperament to maintain his composure and actually convince more people to go along with him? No. It's exactly the opposite. He has no self-control. He's the kind of kid, if you put a bunch of donuts in front of him, he's going to eat all of them instead of wait for an hour for dinner. The true test of character is how you behave when there's no reason to behave the right way. Donald Trump, he'll just go hog wild, whereas we need people who have better character than that, and that's why it always comes back to me, he is not a good guy. Given no constraints, he will screw everybody over. So it's gonna be ugly. But what you're seeing on the left with Bernie Sanders coming out of nowhere to defeat Hillary Clinton, and I know they both suck, but is how we should be thinking about doing this. But we haven't been able to do it. We haven't been able to get together. I think too many of us, once again, not me, have had those thoughts of third-party runs too much in our heads. So the energy we have for working for the Republican Party is down a little bit. It's not 100%. It's kind of down to 75%. It all adds up. Even all those little percentages add up to a point where you have Donald Trump as the leader instead of Ted Cruz, who is a guy who has pretty much played it straight down the line conservative since he got into public life. Not perfect. Once again, nobody's perfect. And the funny thing is we're so caught up in, not me, once again, too many conservatives are so caught up in blowing the system up that they don't seem to see that the only guy running on the Republican side who has challenged the status quo is Ted Cruz. Can't see the forest for the trees. And like I told this friend of mine that I always talk about, I don't want to have my fingerprints on the decline of the United States. I don't want to do that. I'm not going to do that. I can do a lot of things, but I'm not going to do that. And that's why I'm not going to vote for Donald Trump if he's a nominee. I'm going to keep saying it. I have to maintain at least a little bit of self-respect in all this. Can I not? Can I maintain a little self-respect, please? Do I have to buy in totally to everything as if it's some sort of blood oath with the Republican Party? Because it's very obvious to me what's going to happen. But Hillary, is she in trouble? She's still not in trouble, but at least Bernie Sanders is giving her something to think about. And maybe, who knows, maybe he will pull off the miracle. I don't know. As another form of this, moving on to something else, but it's kind of related, I was on the Drudge Report today. I have not been going there. You know that I used to talk about the Drudge Report all the time on this show. I don't go there anymore, and for the very exact reason that I was on there today, and there was not one word about Ted Cruz. Of course, there's a whole bunch of stuff about Hillary Clinton. There was a whole bunch of stuff about Donald Trump. In fact, they even had stories about Marco Rubio, who didn't even win a delegate yesterday. There were stories about John Kasich, not even Ted Cruz's name on the Drudge Report anywhere. Now, I'm going to ask you, do you think that is a coincidence or is that on purpose? I mean, if you don't know, Drudge Report has been in the tank for Donald Trump for months. Why? Ratings. Hey, even the Drudge Report, a popular website like that, needs ratings. So I want you to think about that. The guy who won the second amount of delegates, overperformed in Michigan, had the widest margin of victory yesterday, and he doesn't get mentioned. Okay. That caught my eye when I was over there today, because I went over there thinking that was going to be the case, and I was proven right. This article that started, and I had covered this last week, or maybe Monday. It had to do with this guy who wrote, just a regular person, wrote this article at ricochet.com, a site that I go to, listen to the podcast there. Once in a while, read some of the articles. A member there, just a regular guy, wrote this about how he is a conservative and why he is going to be voting for Donald Trump. He's an Army veteran, and he has this huge, long thing. And it got so popular that I guess it was in the New York Post. And now the story has worked its way over to National Review. And David French over there, who I think does a very nice job, not one of the better-known guys, I guess, at National Review, but he does a very nice job over there, responds to it. And he says, David French says about what I said when I first read the article. He said, you know what, just to boil this David French column down, is this guy isn't conservative. He says he is. He goes to bed thinking that he is. But in reading all of that, you know he's not. He starts to talk about the Iraq War. He starts to talk about trade and protectionist policies and this and that and the other. And at some point, does this person who calls himself a conservative not realize that he may call himself a conservative, but if you were to go down the William Buckley checklist, since we're talking about National Review, this guy would not be able to mark off even 50% of the issues in which he has a commonality with conservatism. Now, I don't know where the line is drawn regarding a person who is, it's like porn. Like they decide in the Supreme Court, they just know it when they see it. How do you describe what porn is? Well, we just know it when we see it. It's the same way with conservatives. You just know it when you see it, and you know it's not when you see it. And when a guy is not afraid, I don't know how many words it was, had to be, let me think about this, for 1,000 words? Maybe I'm totally off. It's pretty long. After 1,000 words, I think I can deduce whether a person is conservative or not. This guy's not conservative. But why does he continue to say he is? Because, well, as I've told you, I think that our conservative media people, the people who we see as teachers for the last 20, 25 years, have failed. Those most popular conservative leaders have not done a good job of just telling people, you know what? Yeah, I know you like the Second Amendment. And yeah, I know you like your pickup truck. And I know you hate those environmental regulations. But you know what? If you don't want to, and this guy even says, I don't want to talk about Planned Parenthood. If you don't want to talk about Planned Parenthood, and if you want to talk about putting tariffs on every product that comes into this country, and you agree with Donald Trump on that, and you believe in unions and things like that, then there's a good possibility you're not conservative. You're something, I wouldn't necessarily say you're liberal, but you're certainly not conservative. And I would tell him that knowing that I know that I don't know what the fine line is. I just know you're not one. So that you tell me that you are one is weird to me. Do you not realize that? Are you not self-aware enough? See, for me, I know that I'm a conservative, even though I know I differ on a few positions compared to the rest of my conservative brethren. And if you came up with the Frederick Hayek, William F. Buckley, Adam Smith conservative checklist, I'd probably chart out probably at 90%. I realize that. I realize I'm not perfect. As you know, gay marriage, I don't think that the government, I'm more of a libertarian. I don't think the government should keep track of people getting married. It's my particular position on that, which is different from a lot of other conservatives. And I could probably cite out a few things. But overall, I still can call myself a conservative because I don't believe in tariffs. I believe in trade. I don't believe in unions. I don't believe in minimum wages. I believe in talking about Planned Parenthood all day and calling them baby killers. I am pro-life. I believe in a strong military. I believe that we should have a tax system that promotes growth and people working in contrast to people not working. I believe in a lot smaller government. I believe in balancing budgets. I believe in the healthcare professionals in this country, the people have chosen to do that with their lives, that they determine how the healthcare system works in this country, on and on and on. But this guy who wrote this article doesn't believe in a lot of that stuff. And that's why I've said going on, and it's funny, it's weird how this all happens because in my recollection, I'm the guy who started talking about this maybe back in October, November, if you've been listening to this show, about giving the conservative media leaders a hard time. And now it's funny how it's suddenly become fashionable. And I think I was the only person talking about it at the time. I think. Now, maybe we just came all to the conclusion at the same time, kind of like how Marconi and Tesla came up with the radio at the same time. Maybe it's something like that. But one more reason that Donald Trump can come in and do what he has done is because we just have a lot of people who call themselves conservative or not and aren't. They're not self-aware. And had we known that they were not conservative, maybe we could have worked on them a little bit harder. But, once again, you see a guy or a woman show up at a Tea Party event. They give money to the Republican Party. They do this, they do that, and they look like a conservative. But then when some candidate comes along who isn't, and they jump on the bandwagon, they're so quick to do that, you have to start wondering. So this is, once again, another flaw that we have, that we've created on our own. This has nothing to do with liberals. It has everything to do with us, our desire for third parties, people calling them conservatives, and they really aren't. They're just doing it maybe just to be cool, or they're just not that self-aware. And they're a little self-righteous about being called anything else. Or they take offense to it. This has all allowed Donald Trump to weasel his way in. On top of the fact, it seems like too much of humanity loves a strongman. And I mean that the bad term, strongman, not the good kind. But I got to go. You can email me at edwarddentzel@reagan.com. You can follow me on Twitter, Dentzel domain, all one word, no space in between. edwarddentzel.com is where you can find all of my old Red State Talk Radio shows. You can also find them at Podomatic, Podbean, SoundCloud, and YouTube. edwarddentzel.com/book is where you can download for free the first chapter of my next book, The Comebacks. You can find me on Facebook and LinkedIn. You're listening to the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio. Good night.